Now, the greatest story never told with Miles and Thrill.
Oh, well, hola and hello. Welcome to the Greatest Story Never Told podcast, episode number 24. When we started this, Steve, did you ever think we'd make it through 24 episodes?
I couldn't believe we got through the first one.
Yeah, and in all truth be told, as we come in here and we try to convey some of the stories we haven't been able to tell on the air, it's oftentimes a bit difficult as far as the ability to not be too self-incriminating on a lot of these stories and try to come up with the ones where the people that are involved in these stories, we do not throw under the bus. We do not make them seem like bad people. Everybody has a bad day.
Well, everybody's bad. I mean, people do what they do, but we realized as we went through some stories, I'm like, timeline's not adding up. Maybe we should wait a little bit.
And honestly, as long as we've been doing this, there are times where I forget a lot of stuff as far as what we've done.
Sure.
And this past week on Sit and Spin, Ryan Castle reminded us of the time that we bet him $500 that he could not get Weird Al Yankovic on an interview with us, and he did it the next day.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not sure what happened to that $500. I don't think Ryan ever got it.
No, he didn't.
But what I can tell you is it's like moments like that where you remember some of the people that you've interviewed along the way. And Ted brings up 30 for 30 on ESPN all the time. Yeah. 30 for 30 basically did this thing. And I'm not sure if it was just about the MMA or whatever, but it was about Tito Ortiz taking on, not Randy Couture, but what was he? Chuck Liddell.
Okay.
Chuck Liddell. That was the big fights back in the day. They did this whole half-hour thing on it. And I thought to myself, oh, yeah, we had Tito in studio.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, we've interviewed Chuck Liddell.
Did we?
Yeah.
When the hell did we interview Chuck Liddell?
We interviewed him on the phone before he was going to fight Tito Ortiz.
I remember Tito Ortiz because Tito Ortiz also, punched Ted in the shoulder?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, Ted's like, I want to see what it feels like.
As hard as he could. And also at the time, Tito was going through a very tumultuous relationship at home. I cannot remember. I don't know if it's Jenna Jameson.
That's who I'm thinking.
I can't remember who he was married to, but he was going through a bunch of crap like that. And oddly, that's kind of how I remember stories when I interviewed Richard Lewis a number of years ago. I was going through a divorce. He was going through some crap at home, too. Mm-hmm. And you kind of connect on that level. And sometimes that stuff works. And then other times, people come in and they are just... The polite way to put it is...
They suck.
They're having a bad day. Or they're just not good people.
Some people are having a bad day. And I would say 9 times out of 10... it's our job to understand that. So there's people we've talked to more than once, and there have been times they have a bad day, but you recognize it's a bad day, don't take it personally.
Yeah.
Every once in a while you get someone and you go, this person is actually a turd, and I'm kind of pissed that we're stuck talking to this clown, right?
And then later on down the line, you realize like some of these people are just not good people, but you had a good time with them. So it's kind of like this weird thing.
Lots of them, yes.
Like Louis C.K.
Mm-hmm.
Louis C.K., at one point in time, was doing stand-up. He was just kind of getting started. He'd been doing stand-up, but now... from just being a writer and everything else, he was eventually just going to branch out on his own, see what was out there. And at that time, there was a show on HBO called The Chris Rock Show.
Yeah.
And he was the chief writer of that show.
Mm-hmm.
So he came in, and we thought we were going to have him for 15 minutes. He was staying for the weekend at the Improv, doing the Baltimore Improv. We brought him in studio, and Louis C.K. sat there and talked to us for an hour and a half about just... anything.
It was a great conversation.
He was a great guy. Great conversationalist. The perfect interview. Now, when he gets out of there, turns out he's not a good guy.
Right.
And like a lot of people, you don't, when you meet someone, you meet them at face value. And the weird part about this job is, as long as we've been doing it, man, with celebrities have you met? The typical questions, which are, those are reasonable questions. But the truth of the matter is this. We meet someone for about 20 minutes of their life. We get this small snapshot of what they're doing at that point in time, where they are in their life. We interviewed Rose McGowan, okay? And at the time, we did not realize what she was going through making this film with Rodriguez and Harvey Weinstein and all the stuff that was going on behind the scenes, which you now see now. She was furious at the time because... there was a lot of bad stuff going on.
But she's not telling us what it is, so all we
don't know this.
This is a mean woman, right? We know what we know now, but at the time we're talking to her, for obvious reasons, she's not outing everyone, but she's just not in a good place. And looking back, it's like, I feel bad for thinking, and we didn't really speak
Robert
disparagingly
Rodriguez,
of her.
is that the guy's name? The guy who did Grindhouse and all that stuff.
I don't remember. We
I
just say
believe it is.
Rodriguez,
but
man.
I believe they were together at the time. I believe
something
when
like
we
that.
called that they were living together in the same house, whatever, and they just did a Grindhouse feature with Quentin Tarantino, which is a Harvey Weinstein stuff. All that crap was going on. But there are some interviews where you just remember them. We were at Pain in the Grass one year, and 3 Days Grace. They were close to being the headliner on 1 or 2 or 3 days and doing their thing. And we wanted to go backstage and interview them. We have a cut sheet before we get to the Pain in the Grass concert. Here are the bands you'll be interviewing. Last year, we interviewed Bones UK, 2 wonderful girls. They're awesome. Yeah, sorry. I mean, they're cool to hang out with.
We've met them before. They are just cool,
There's certain people that you want to interview when they come around. Gavin Rossdale, really nice guy. Incredible skin.
But did not want to be there. And that's nothing about him, all right? So understand, we had a horrible interview with Gavin Rossdale from Bush, not because he's a bad guy, but the way this particular day worked out for him, he's running behind schedule. He's under a lot of stress, but when we sat down to talk to him, this dude kept it together, and you could not meet a more suave gentleman. But you knew, man, as soon as this is done, I got to get my ass together. But he would never say that. So you go, you know what? He's having a bad day, but you know this guy, Gwen Stefani might disagree, but generally speaking, he's just a good quality guy.
He was a good guy.
And like Miles said, incredible freaking skin. Listen,
But
we don't care about skin, but when you talk to Gavin Rossdale, like when the interview was over,
what kind of moisturizer do you
all
use?
of us were like, look, man, I don't want to sound like less of a man, but did you see his skin?
What is your routine?
And Ted's like, he glows. I mean,
yeah, he does. Right. He does. But, then there's 3 Days Grace where we go back there. We don't know that the lead singer and the rest of the band are going through hell. We have no idea, but we do know this guy is a complete douche, and he's not in a good place. And he
was an ass,
and he's
man.
giving
He
us
was.
hell. So I'm trying. Steve's trying, all right? But eventually Steve gives up about 30 seconds in. So Steve's like, the hell with you. If you're not going to answer any questions and you don't want to be here, I don't want to be here. I don't need to help your ass out.
To be fair, I did not know that the interview was not over, because in my mind, when you say an interview, the idea is someone asks questions, someone else answers. So if one person's asking questions and the other people or person does not answer, then you're not doing an interview. And so I'm too old, and this is my profession. I'm not waiting for you to figure it out. So I was just like, all right, well, he doesn't want to talk. I get up, I roll out, and say, F you, man. I'm out of here, right? You can kiss my ass. So that following Monday, our boss is like, did you walk out of, and I understand this, because he doesn't see it. So
He doesn't understand what was going on.
Did you walk out of a 3 Days Grace interview? And I kind of chuckled, and I said, well, I guess I did if you're asking, but to be honest with you, I thought the interview was over. But again, the guy is definitely a douchebag, whatever. But the way it plays is the management for 3 Days Grace, they just see the interview is abruptly ended. I'm the guy behind it. And look, I can live with it. I don't care if you're mad at me or not. I can live with that kind of stuff. And the guy was a douche. Well, but I still felt bad because I didn't want our boss to have to deal with management saying, man, and honestly, that's your connection to caring. As far as the guy goes, didn't like him, don't like him now, but the band was cool, but they weren't saying much. About 3 months later, boss calls me back into his office and he goes, hey, you remember that 3 Days Grace interview? I said, yeah, man, look, again, I'm sorry. He's like, no. You were right. The band fired his ass just for being a douche. I mean, they
did. Yeah.
I was like, I tried to tell you.
And we've had people in the studio that were not fun. Aaron Lewis from Stained is horrible.
My problem with Aaron Lewis was this, though. He, and this before weed was legal, but he, like us, always been a weed smoker. All right. And he's championed it and all this stuff. So we had gotten word, hey, when he gets to Seattle, he was wondering if you guys could get him a bag of weed. We're like, no problem. I mean, honest to God, this is the truth. So we got a bag of weed, and we got good stuff because you want to impress him, you know what I mean? And so we had it off to the side, and before the interview, as you kind of break each other down to get a feel for each other, right? So when the mics are on, you can have a better conversation. Weed, and this is all of us. Weed. We get on the air, trying to loosen him up. We bring up weed. I believe his quote was, you guys must have a problem. He basically played like he's never smoked weed in his life, and then they just kind of sucked. I don't hate the guy, but this was his moment. He couldn't deny it. The interview's still on tape.
Kind of weirdly confrontational at that point.
It did, but you know what we did? We didn't give him his weed, and when he left, we smoked the living.
We smoked it.
We smoked the hell out of it.
Yeah, and there have been times where the interview is our fault to some extent.
Sure, absolutely.
We had we've interviewed Slash a couple times from Guns N' Roses.
Now, wait, we didn't ruin the interview.
I didn't say we ruined the interview.
What we discovered is that Slash is a very patient and kind of funny guy,
Yeah,
we did an interview out of studio later. Before we get to the first, just know we were going to go to the club where he is playing, all right? And we had talked to him earlier in the day, and the truth is we got along. He's
very nice guy.
Exceptionally cool guy. So we see him again. He's kind of happy to see us because if you have to do another interview, at least it's dudes I had fun with. But what he didn't realize was between the time he left and the time we see him later at the club, Miles and I have been drinking.
No, these are two different events.
All freaking day.
No,
Are you sure?
Yeah, two different events.
Look, long story short.
We interviewed him one time in the studio. He was cutting up Sweet and Low lines, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, and that was a fine interview. This was after that initial interview. But the interview before that went like this. He just came out with a book. All right, so he was going to do a book signing and then do an acoustic performance down at Showbox Soto and do that thing. So we need to show up there by, let's say, 6:30, all right? We get off there at 6. We get down there by 6:30. It's after work, man. We're done doing our crap. Like, we're supposed to interview him at 7.
Sure.
7:15 goes by. 7:30 goes by. Whatever happens. It's 2 hours. We're at a bar. We just got off work. We're hammered. We are hammered.
So keep in mind, our perspective is we don't mind waiting because they got a bar. You know, I mean, like, it's not like we have nothing to do. Cool,
no
take
problem.
your time, bro.
Tell him whatever he wants to do. We're good. And then by the time we get on there, and it's a video interview that you can check out. Probably we're like, blah, 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 and you mother, like, because we're just, being ourselves.
All I remember is saying
and he's
this to
sober
him.
as hell.
And I remember
obviously.
the smile on his face. Because we're like, and another thing, you're like a guitar god. How do you play guitar with those fat sausage fingers? And I remember he looks down at his hand because he never thought about it. And I had never thought about it. But in the time we're talking to him, I realized, as people call it, like fat sausage fingers, which means bad for bass, bad for guitar, bad for piano, whatever. But because he is a very good guitar player, and we're looking at his fingers. Then Miles piles on. And I remember he's kind of chuckling. And he's like, fellas, I never thought of it. Like, now I'm self-conscious. Like, right, exactly. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know how I play guitar because you're right. My fingers are fat and stubby.
But I think we'll finish this episode of The Greatest Story Never Told with real quick before we get to that, because we forget again as always. As far as sponsoring this program, okay, we know that the podcast is not sponsored. Mm-hmm. Even if they play a commercial before this, act like you didn't hear it. It's okay. What we're trying to do is we're trying to get people to give money to the Fisher House locally, and you can be an unofficial sponsor of the podcast.
An official. So get mine. It's unofficial, but you are officially unofficial.
And here are a couple of the emails we've gotten since the last time we talked. Ola Gents, I've been stationed on beautiful Whidbey Island for the past 13 years. I'm currently stuck on deployment with no real answers as to when I get to go home due to the virus. Listening to you guys every day truly makes me feel better and closer to home. Thank you for all you do. I have nothing to promote. Just want to help you support this worthy cause. Donation receipt attached, very respectfully. That from Jeremy Saunders. And he donated $250.
Oh, nice. Hey, man, good on you. Good on you.
That's pretty strong, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Actually, he didn't. He didn't. He donated like $10. No, he donated $250. Okay. And Daniel Coker, president of the Fisher House, sent him a nice note.
Oh, nice, man.
So now we're up to, what do we want to say as far as
say $12 million. Look,
sponsoring the
don't
podcast?
Know.
Let's say if you want to be a sponsor, you give us $21.67. $21.67. You can be an official sponsor. One more email, podcast guys. I'm stuck at home. Old Bacholas. Yesterday, while working on projects around the house, I started listening to The Greatest Story Never Told. I started on episode 1 and managed to get through episode 19.
Jesus.
And considering we're 24, that's great. He says, I love it. So cool to hear Drep talking about you guys. That woman nearly brought me tears to my eyes. She and Maurice are awesome, who were staying at the Fisher House. That from the boat builder, Jim Marshall.
Hey, by the way, she owes us sugar cookies. Let's not forget the deal we made with her.
Right.
Yeah, she's great. She's kind. She's wonderful. All that stuff. I want my sugar cookies.
Yeah. So we'll leave you with this little story, and this goes back to the CBS Baltimore days, where we were doing interviews with a lot of comedians that were coming through. That was typically our thing because the Improv was there. They wanted to get the thing on. We're a midday show, doing a Thursday night, Friday night show. So in walks David Allen Greer. Now, David Allen Greer, he is from a family of comedy, Hollywood deep, much like the Wayans, but Greer, like he had a sister who was an actress. His family is very well involved.
It's been what? In Living Color, he's on a show now like the Carmichael Effect, Carmichael Neighborhood. if you saw them, you know them. I want to say when they one of the more brilliant things I've seen on network TV, they recreated. Oh, was it Good Times and All in the Family? I believe he showed up in one of the roles on that. I mean, this guy's been around for a while.
And he kind of goes around with a troupe of comedians, and they do a show. So he had a female with him. He had a younger comedian that they were pimping. Basically, David Allen Greer needs a little prop up. You know what I mean? So like when he came in studio, he had the guy who was a younger comedian. He had the girl with him who was also a comedian, that type of thing. But it was a really weird thing because you could tell right away that David Allen Greer didn't want to be there.
He had his arms full, like sit in a chair, cross your legs, fold your arms. But when you fold your arms, don't fold them the way you normally do. Make sure your palms are on your biceps, if you know what I mean. It's the real defiant kind of thing. So but he also wouldn't make eye contact with us. And we realized during the first part of this interview, no matter what we asked, he would never look at us. He would just be like, or and look, it is what it is. We don't know.
And just so you know, in the world of doing anything, whether you're watching a late night show, whether you are listening to an interview on the radio or whatever, when it comes time to take a commercial break, typically those are they're blocked in a way where the segment is done or the segment continues.
Right.
If you get someone on the couch on late night and they're the one guest. Hey, we'll be right back.
You're coming back to them.
Tom Cruise.
Right.
We'll be right back with, you know the names, Oprah Winfrey. We're going to continue.
Those people, right,
you get more. If not, it's like it's 4 guests a night, 3 guests a night, whatever the deal is. Well, at that point in time, we do the same thing. Like, look, we'll put someone on the air, and if they're really, really good, we keep them on the air.
Always. That's still our mantra now, right?
But if not, and we realize we've done all we can do in this interview, when we go to break, the interview is over. At this point in time, the interview was still early on. We weren't sure what we were going to do yet. He's in studio. It hasn't been that long, but he's not saying anything. We go to break. We're like, oh, God, what do we do? And then I think, Steve, you had a memory.
I will spare a lot of details. As it turns out, a couple of years before we did this interview, I worked at a sports station, and the sports station was working with sports books, all right? So this, the internet's getting there, and online betting, where it was legal, and obviously it's huge business. So one of the things, the salespeople came up to me, sales manager, and said, hey, would you, because I'm working on the sports station, would you be interested in flying to Costa Rica? Already, yes. And where you're going, they're going to do this an opening of a casino. But this particular casino will also do sports betting. It's a big deal, tied into the station. I'm like, hell yeah. So what this casino had done is they had reached out to sports stations across the country. Hey, fly someone down. We'll treat them all well. Because the idea is when we get back, we go, hey, man, you want to go to Bet on Sports, I believe it was called. And also they have a casino, blah, 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 blah. Well, they invited a bunch of people. Now, one of the things, man, you know what? To be honest with you, my experience there the night before this David Allen Greer story is a whole nother podcast, believe me. But the night of the hard opening of the casino, it's kind of cool. Like that 70s show was hitting really big. So I remember I'm walking through the casino, and there's a bunch of celebrities and athletes, but Ashton Kutcher's there, Wilder Valderrama,
Carmen Electra,
the curly-haired dude. Well, Carmen Electra is performing with the Pussycat Dolls, so it's cool, but David Allen Greer's there. And, everyone recognizes him, but everyone leaves each other alone. You do your own thing. Just know that. So I'm not going to throw the guy under the bus. But a couple of years passed. He doesn't know me from Adam, right? But a couple of years have passed from here, and here he is, not wanting to do an interview, but sitting in our studio, ruining our show. So we go to break. Miles says something, kind of upbeat, and David Allen Greer is still like, mm-hmm. So I said, hey, man, I don't know if you remember this. I met you a couple of years ago in Costa Rica. Well, now I have his attention. And all I did was, and sure, maybe people call it coercion, arm twisting. I don't know. I never threatened the guy. I just said, it's crazy. I remember seeing you there. And then there's that back room with the chains that are like a curtain. And you're back there with that chick at the pool table. To be fair, I will not explain what I saw, all right? But I promise you that what I saw is not something he would necessarily want to get out there. And so he's looking at me. And listen, the only possible way I can know this is if I was there. So he knew, like, oh, no, like this cat was there. And I'm like, yeah, I remember, because she was bent over the pool table, and you were. And look, it doesn't matter what you fill in your brain.
Wait, hold on, there's 30 seconds, we're coming back.
It's not what you think it is. So I just said to him, so, hey, man, we're about to come back. When we come back, either, like, we can do the interview, or I'll just talk about the one time I met you. Man, we come back. Miles would be like, "So tell us about your new tour." Let me tell you what. It's the
Different
most
human being.
Oh yeah. Now
Different
all of a
person.
sudden,
Family, friendly, happy,
he was one of our best
nice,
interviews. One of the best interviews ever. All because
all you had to do was threaten him with whipping some chick on a pool table, and he
with
goes,
a chain,
well, just
a hooker that you hired to beat with a chain.
you're gonna beat a hooker in Costa Rica with a chain on a pool table, and now you'll open up.
And guess what? One of the few people that witnessed that, you're talking to him, and you know I had to be there because no one else.
By the way, David's got 2 shows tonight on Thursday night at the Improv, 7:30 and 10:30. 2 shows Friday night, 2 shows Saturday night.
So we're like, hey, David, man, thank you for coming in. Absolutely, it's my pleasure. Basically, the message was, you know I can throw you under the bus. His message in return was, please don't do that. I'm going to be the funniest, friendliest. Here's some material for my routine. It was all there.
Yeah.
And all I said was, I remember seeing you in Costa Rica in the pool room. I didn't say anything else. It's amazing to me that little things like that make all the difference.
Yeah, you never know. There you go. On The Greatest Story Never Told, episode number 24.
You've been listening to The Greatest Story Never Told with Miles and Thrill on radio.com.
Oh, man! A Double Flush production.